Today I have Vilen with us. Vilen is my designer.
Yes.
And one also my coworker.
Yes.
And he's someone that I respect with his point of view in life about one's craft, one's path, self-mastery, and the integration between a physical practice, martial arts, MMA, as well as a practice in self-mastery. So I'm interested to hear more about your point of view in this. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'll start off with a question that I always ask all of my guests is if you can think back on some of the defining moments in your life that define you as a person, that define you as a man. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, one moment that sticks out, and I'm just going to go with my kind of first instinct right when you asked that question. And a defining moment in my life is the first time I truly failed at something. And when I was going to college, I had a completely different career path. I was going to be a computer engineer, a programmer, and I went to school for it. And while I was learning HTML, and I was learning to be a developer. I realized that my brain just didn't work that way. That there's just a certain, I understood it in concept, but I just couldn't do it like everyone else could. I knew it wasn't because like a lack of intelligence or something. It just, my brain wasn't just wired that way. And it wasn't a matter of like I couldn't overcome it. It was just sort of this, it gave me this opportunity to consider what else is out there for me. Maybe if this doesn't, if my brain doesn't work this way, where does it work? And that's when I started going into design, to the design aspect of it. And the first time I failed at something was the best thing that happened, because I didn't crawl into a cave. I didn't get disappointed or just be like, oh, life is over. I said, okay, let's figure this out. Why doesn't it work? And that path led me to a different career and led me here, and I'm very happy for it. I think so. Yeah, and since then, failure in anything has just led to like opportunity. Yeah.
But you kind of skip ahead quite a bit, right?
Right.
How old were you at the time?
I'd say, 19?
19 years old.
Yeah.
If you think back 19, when I was 19, I wasn't as emotionally mature as you were, right? I probably would have taken it very, very, actually no, not probably. I did take it very personally, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of setback. If I didn't get a straight A,
Yeah.
I was the failure.
Right.
Not I had a failure, but I was a failure personally. So how were you able to take a very mature reaction to this setback at such a young age? Did you first of all, did you go through that what was me first and come out of that, or did you right away just look at it in a very rational sense?
No, I'd say, initially it was kind of bad. You felt disappointed, probably a couple days couldn't sleep. Didn't sleep well, at least. But ultimately, as I tried to kind of fix the problem, it just sort of kind of came to the surface. And the purpose of college, I think, was to discover what it is that you are going to be good at. What is it that you're going to be doing, hopefully, for the rest of your life? So yeah, that's the idea, right? That is where I kind of discovered that is the way I think of things. And I'll actually tell you, there's an interesting story with this that I also thought about, and it's funny. When I was in, I say high school, 9th grade, we had a substitute teacher, and this substitute teacher told us that he's a certified psychic. Yeah. So naturally, all of us wanted him to tell us, like, okay, well, what number am I thinking? What's this? What's that? Understand at this point, I was going to be a computer engineer. Even in high school, I knew it. I knew everything about computers. I didn't know how little I knew until I got to college. But I go to this guy, and he's saying, okay, the gift he has, that he claims he has, is he can tell what you're going to do when you get older. And he just looks at me, and he's like, you're going to be working in something creative. Yeah, you're going to be creating things. I'm like, this guy's a fraud. This guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And, however many years later, it kind of hit me, and I remember that moment, and it could have been real, it could have been right, could have been wrong. I did sort of look into it, where
you looked him up?
No, not him up, but I was thinking maybe like certain facial symmetry, there's a correlation between that and how you, like, what kind of, if you're left brain or right brain,
okay,
or something like this, and there is a correlation,
okay,
between it, and I'm thinking that's how he was able to point that out. Just your brain is wired a certain way, and it kind of shows on your face. Yeah,
got it.
I remember that moment. That actually helped me. It could think to explore that aspect.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So that was the first defining moment in your life?
That's the first one I remember, yeah.
Were there others?
Yeah. I also actually, right before, I'd say my first year of college was also the last year I ever competed as an amateur in MMA, mixed martial arts.
Oh, you competed?
Yeah, as an amateur.
I didn't know that.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I had 3 total fights as actual amateur event. I've had others where they were sort of just exhibitions inside of a gym. But I had 2 fights prior, and I did very well. I just assumed I was so good. I didn't. A lot of the lessons I learned in life are simply like, you don't know. If I could take a mantra from it, is you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Like, you think the world is, a certain size, and you're right at the edge. Then when you really learn how big the universe is, or the world is, it's 10 times that size, and you're still in the same spot. So when I had to kind of go up a level in competition, it didn't work out the same way it did before. It wasn't easy. It required everything I had to just stay in there. And I learned a few things about myself. First of all, how do I react under adversity? Like, I'm getting hit hard. No one's ever hit me this hard before. But I'm not giving up. I'm not running away. Yes, I'm locked in a cage. There's nowhere to go, but that happens. And I was proud of myself for the way that I stayed in there, but I couldn't focus. I couldn't, I had to be clever, but all of it wasn't working out. So I learned that day that, it is hard when you discover you're not as good at something as you thought, which is okay. It means you can get better. You can get better. You just, until you got to that point, you didn't know what better meant. You didn't know what you have
an
to do.
idea.
Right.
What the heck does it mean?
Yeah.
Now you're going, mano a mano against another person.
Against someone who trained more than I did, is physically superior. That was a good moment. And when I went back, I tried new things. I didn't keep doing the same thing over and over. I picked apart what happened to me. And now, any time, with everything that I do, if someone does something better than I do, then I'm spending the next few days picking it apart, obsessing over it, figuring out. Not in an unhealthy way, just that's how I learn to improve.
Yeah.
Because everything that you do, I think you should always try to compete with someone who's better than you.
For sure.
And
that's the only way you learn.
Yeah, it's the only way, exactly. Yeah, that's how I figured that out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I had to get hit in the head a couple times for it, but.
So did you continue to compete?
No.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, that was the last one. It wasn't because of that reason. I didn't necessarily want to compete. Just the gym that I was at, it was no longer just a mixed martial arts gym. They were fight camps. So everyone there was either an amateur or a professional fighter.
Okay.
And if you wanted to kind of train there, you needed experience. Because a big part of the fight camps isn't just the physical, but it's also the psychological. Yeah. When you're working with the guy who's prepping for a fight, you have to kind of understand what he's going through because you went through it as well. There's an anxiety to this when you're prepping for it that
actually,
is
I don't
terrible.
understand. Back up 1 second.
So a fight camp is one or two or three of the members of the gym are prepping for a fight. They're training for a fight.
An actual fight. A professional fight.
A professional or an amateur fight.
Okay.
Fight camps are usually for professionals. Yes.
Right.
Then all the guys in the gym who are within that person's weight class or like close to it train with him. And we're helping this person, reach their goal weight, not get injured, get mentally prepared, and we train with them. So we're all killing ourselves, but he's the focus. Right. For example, whoever is fighting.
Everyone pay money though to participate in this.
No, we are part of being in the fight camp is that you are the gym sponsors you.
I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
My case and a few others were a little different because we were just paying memberships for the regular gym, but we were a little past the beginner classes and a little beyond the more advanced classes, and this is where we jumped in. And certain and the fighters can request, certain people if they've trained with you and they kind of like the way you train, they can request you as well.
I see.
So this would happen. And in order to really help the guy prep for this, you had to have experienced a similar thing. Yeah. And that's because just the weight cut by itself is nightmarish.
Oh, you didn't like it, that experience?
No one does. I don't think anyone's ever liked weight cut before.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I've never experienced it, so I don't know.
You're draining your body of water, essentially. You can't eat anything. You're always hungry, but you can't eat anything. Your lunchtime is just basically a bowl of spinach. For example, you have to constantly keep track of your weight. I remember the day of my weigh-in. I walk around about 165 pounds. I dropped to 145 for this one, and there was another fight I was at 135. Right. For it as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember for the 145 one, as I'm minutes away from maybe 20-30 minutes away from weighing in, all I wanted was some water. And so my coach gave me a water bottle. He didn't let me drink it. He said, "Hold this, go stand on the scale." And I'm standing on the scale while I'm holding the water bottle, and with the water I would be 2 pounds over. So it's like, "No, you can't have the water." Took it away from me. I weighed in, and then I drank my body weight basically, and and I had 2 kind of plates of Panda Express waiting. Right. Yeah, that's my post.
That's your reward.
That's my post weigh-in food. It's Panda Express.
So, I mean, I love that story because a lot of guys, myself included, fantasize, "Oh man, what would it be like if I'm facing with so and so?" Right. Or at least there's that natural instinct to size up. Yeah. Whoever you're talking to. Right. Can I take this guy? Right. That's when I was doing all the time in my head. Yeah. When I was practicing martial arts, and the reality of this, I realized, is I can do as much fantasizing as, theorizing as I want, but I don't know until I step into the ring, and actually test. What you can do, what you can't, and recently I listened to Kobe Bryant's interview with what's his name? One of the podcasts. Yeah, Lewis Howell. That's right. Okay. And he talked about his journey to be a MVP player. So here's a really interesting story. He was 11 years old. in basketball camp,
Mm-hmm.
and in the whole summer, he couldn't score 1 point.
Oh.
And that was actually quite interesting to me because in my mind, he's Kobe Bryant.
Right.
In my mind, I just didn't calculate in my head that he was a kid at 1 point. He had to learn basketball
Right.
at 1 point.
You just assume he was born.
He was
that
born,
ability.
and NBA superstar Kobe Bryant. The reality, I also realized, hearing that interview, I realized ultimately, if someone wants to be as good, so here's his story. So he then, from that point on, did a reverse math problem. He said, all right, if everyone practiced, let's say 2 hours per practice twice a week, if I practice 5 times a week, I would be double or double and a half as good after 1 year. So even if I just continue to play this game, in a matter of 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, I'll be as good as any of these guys who was really, really good at that point at age 11. Then I can catch up to them.
Yeah.
So he started just putting the hours, hard practice, and then within 2 years, he was the best in the state. Right. Within 10 years. He was, continuing to become NBA players and MVPs. Within 20 years, was the best.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you really just do the calculation, roughly speaking, I can't remember some calculations I made. He ultimately practiced roughly 40,000 hours.
Yeah.
Hard practice.
Amazing.
Right.
And I believe that.
Yeah. No, I mean that's amazing. But so if anyone wants to be as good as Kobe Bryant. Minimally speaking, the ticket to entry is 40,000 hours hard practice.
Right.
You may not be as good as Kobe Bryant and get multiple MVP players and titles and all these other things. However, I bet you will get a fraction of what he's able of doing. Right. So talent aside, gift aside,
right?
His
natural abilities,
his father's coaching aside, all that stuff aside. I mean, I get it. Definitely,
there's some advantages.
There's some,
absolutely,
for sure. Not taking any of that away.
Yeah,
but you can get a fraction, right, of his ability.
Yeah, you could grow like he grew exponentially. You would grow by that same exponent.
Right, compared to myself,
where you started.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
So if he improved by 300%, you'll improve by 300%. But
roughly, right?
Yeah, relative
obviously
to
there's
you.
no numbers, but again, quantifiably to be leaps and bounds better.
Exactly.
Than if I just going back to your story, what I realized, instead of theorizing and fantasizing, it's about number of fights. Right? It's about like how many fights you have. Obviously, with practice, with intentionality, with coaching, you will get better to be a better fighter.
Yeah.
And no amount of fantasizing or dojo practice
or like hitting a bag.
Or hitting a bag will replace that. If you want to be a better fighter, the only way to do that
is fight.
Actually fight.
Yes.
For real.
Absolutely.
Right? In a ring.
Right. I mean, sparring works too.
Yeah.
Sparring
but
is
to a certain degree, because you're still practicing, not actually 100%.
That's right.
Trying to take down the other guy or whatever, right? Score a point.
Absolutely.
Or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's a really simplistic way for me to look at it. If you want to get better at something, do the thing.
Yeah, right. That's essentially what it is.
And then you get better. And then that's actually the impetus, personally, for me to do these podcast interviews. One, because I really enjoy it. Two, if I look at Joe Rogan and say, "Oh my God, that guy is so good," let me do some homework.
Yeah.
So then let me break down what he's doing, so then I can prepare myself for the podcast. Forget it. That's one approach, certainly. But another approach is just do the podcast.
Right. Stop.
And then stop worrying about the outcome and whatever. I can do the post gameplay afterwards. But this is about you, so I want to come back to you.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
So are there other significantly pivotal moments in your life that made you the person that you are today? the man that you are today?
I don't, it's kind of hard to find like no big moments. It's just a series of small moments, little nudges throughout life. Family is a big part of it. My family, I am Armenian, and Armenian families are very, very close, both like emotionally close and physically close. Like we all live next to each other. My entire family, all my cousins, relatives, essentially everybody lives within 2 to 3 miles of each other in Glendale, with the exception of myself, who lives in Culver City. So every weekend I try to go visit them. But family, they would always try to kind of pull me in, and
You want way?
I'll just stay here.
Oh,
There's nothing. I mean, there was nothing in that city for me to do with what I wanted to do. I had to sort of expand, go a little further to the west side. At one point, I remember I almost moved to New York to work at an ad agency. And they usually, most of my life, I just did whatever it was to make my parents happy. It was like a path of least resistance, because they were very, very good at I love my parents. They're wonderful parents, but without knowing, they could guilt me into doing just about anything. They were the only people who could do it. And they
know where the buttons to push.
Right, yeah. But they just knew how to do it so well. They did it unconsciously. Like they didn't mean to. Of course, they would never mean to do that, I hope. But when I made the decision, it was first like move out. Moving out is in an Armenian family is maybe the worst thing. It's like leaving, you're never going to see them again.
You abandon them.
Right. Yeah. That's how they would make it feel. But I had to kind of stick with it. And I felt really bad, felt so guilty about it. I overdid the visiting at home. And, but at that exact time, my career started to kind of blossom, because I started to notice how much time I would spend doing things that were not helping push my career forward. A lot of it was family-based, like, go see this person, go see that person, trying to make everybody happy all the time. That was one issue. And it's a type of family that doesn't mind asking for things all the time, just because you're close by. Not my immediate family, but cousins and stuff like that. They can be very overwhelming. But I got away from that, just at least during the week, and that let me focus on what I needed to do. And all that extra time, I was careful not to waste it. I had it, be productive with it. And
you were very intentional about that.
Yes,
free time you got.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I knew what this opportunity was. Once I started to notice it was happening, yes, go for it. Focus on it, use it well. And part of using it well, part of the thing was figure out what you have to do. You have to create a game plan for yourself. How do you do that? First of all, let's find the ultimate goal. What do you want to do? I want to be a creative director one day. How do I get there? What are the steps to it? What are the things I have to learn? So I started learning all these different things, taught myself how to learn them, which is more important. And slowly, but not surely, I moved up, and this is the current, place on my path.
No, but this is actually interesting. So you basically did everything yourself? You were self-taught that way? Like self-didact? You figure it out yourself?
Yeah,
Did you have a mentor? Did you have a teacher?
No.
Did you have a council of men, or someone to help guide you along the way? Or you just kind of figure it out yourself?
I had to figure it out myself. No mentor, no like rock. No one to talk to, really. So that kind of messed with like any relationships I tried having, in an inability to, like, unwillingness to just share gladly how I'm feeling, because I didn't want anybody to feel bad like that. that was a byproduct of it. But yeah, the to learn stuff, we live in an age where you can learn just about anything.
Sure.
And that's how I would do it. I just, read what I could, watch what I could, try it out, try by doing, and that's how I did it.
I see.
Yeah.
Is this still the same way where you do everything pretty much yourself, or do you have a council of people who can help, be the sounding board, tell you the truth, shine the mirror to you, and when you veer from your purpose, where you want to go, tell you and say, hey, you are deviating from your path?
Yeah. I wish I did. No, I don't, unfortunately.
Not in the area of, let's say, mixed martial arts or work or anything like that, or family wise.
Again, family was wasn't. It wasn't that kind of I didn't have that kind of relationship because it was a lot of just take care of them.
I see. So you were the caretaker.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
You don't seek their input. You give your input.
They give the input regardless. So I've never been, you know what I mean? I've never been in a situation where I've had to seek it out because it was always freely given. A lot of times it's great advice, of course.
Okay.
These are, my parents, incredible people. They've had a lot of experiences. A lot of these experiences had to do growing up in the Soviet Union, so that's a lot different here. The way they grew up, the way that they were sort of programmed was just assume the worst in everything.
Right.
That's not a nice way to grow up, in the U.S.
Right.
Especially. So when your parents always just assume something bad is going to happen with everything. But yeah, they would always give great advice freely. There was never a need to ask for it. And then when, that was no longer a thing, because not everybody gives advice freely. And I never got in the habit of asking for it.
I see.
So what I had to learn was do something, fail, figure out why it failed, and there it is.
You let doing be the best teacher for you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So knowing what you know now, right, if someone's listening to this, who may be younger, who may be in the path of moving out of the house or whatever it may be, knowing what you know now, would you believe doing is the best way of learning still, or do you believe there's a mixture of, I don't want to lead the witness per se,
right.
But is there a middle way, or?
I think so. I think if you doing is great. Doing is still the best way. But I think having a mentor or someone you look up to, someone who can help you guide, who can help guide you to that path, cuts the time in half. A lot of people that I've worked for, this is usually their story. They, just like me, they learn everything, they self-learn, they try it, but they had someone who they looked up to, someone who is where they wanted to be, and that person would kind of point them in the right direction.
Okay.
And that kind of cuts the time down. So
if you let's say, drawing from blank right now, from scratch, if you were to have a mentor, what kind of criteria would such a mentor be?
I'd say someone who is from, I like to say someone from a humble background like mine.
Okay.
Who is self-taught, who didn't necessarily, who found a lot of success in his field, and that field being similar to my field.
Sure.
And he can tell you how, what's the best way to get there, or at least what a lot of people have tried, give me the tool, not tell me exactly how to get there, but give me the tools to get there myself.
Point you to the direction.
Point me in that direction, because I'll go east, west, north, and only to go really far, figure out this is not the right way to go, come back, go that way. So if you could eliminate that part, do that. And I feel like that kind of person who understands you and you understand them, that's an ideal mentor. kind of thing.
Beautiful. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
I want to focus on a little bit on self-mastery. Because you are someone whose work, you just make beautiful work.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously we have a lot of talented people. But something about the work that you do and the way you do it, to me, speaks louder about self-mastery than. Let me actually contextualize a little bit. Let's see, how do I articulate this question? Okay. You know how there's some people walking around saying like, hey, look how great my work is?
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Right.
But the work that you do speaks louder than perhaps what someone else, external words may say.
Yeah.
Right? And how you do them. You're very humble about it. You're very collaborative. You include other people. Anyways, speak more about what are some of the tactical disciplines that you take to hone your self-mastery?
So it's a lot of practice. I do a lot of it at home. I give myself projects. I give myself projects that will help me master certain elements of whatever it is I'm working on. Now, this could be a new program I have to learn, and I've got like 3 days to learn it, to be good at it. Or I'm trying to understand color theory, or I'm trying to understand light balancing. It's a very simple formula. It's just like Kobe Bryant. It's repeat. It's putting in the hours. Once you do that, then the learning curve also gets shortened in the next thing. Whenever I create anything, like let's say using Illustrator or Sketch, there's already an established base that I have that lets me move quickly, create quickly. I know what I am looking for. I know if there's like a mistake or an issue because I've done it 100 times before and something's off. Maybe I don't notice it right away, but I notice something is off, and I'll catch it. And these are all things that happen in like microseconds. And because I repeat and have done it so many times, that's how I'm able to move through it so quickly.
Let me actually be more specific
here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So with basketball, it's a little bit easier to see because they're scoreboard, literally, right?
Yeah.
And then there's known fundamentals like shooting and dribbling, like things like that, passing, right? And positioning in the court. So there's a little bit more easier for me to understand. So talk to me about the fundamentals of design. Maybe so that way you can concretize the practice that you talked about. Like when you say you do practice, you give yourself projects. What are you practicing? What are some of the fundamental things? So that way it can help people who are listening concretize what are some of these perhaps fundamentals or the fancier stuff that you're using or better theory that you're testing, and so that way it kind of like build it for us.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'd say from the beginning, a good way to establish a base is we all have eyes. We know things that we like, that we see. Find ads, find creatives, find anything that you like. Take them and break them down. What are the elements that make it look so good? You look at a photo or an advertisement, for example, and there are a lot of things going on in there. There's like color theory, for example. You want to learn it. You want to understand what colors complement other colors, what colors contrast, or like have high levels of contrast that you want to balance, you want to make work. All these photos, all these professional designers know this stuff. You work from there. You work from that. You break them down to their sort of like their core, and now you have a project. Number one, recreate what they did from scratch. Number two,
from scratch as
right.
in white paper,
right?
Well, white canvas.
Yeah, whatever your medium is.
Right.
If you want to be an artist, it's a painting. You want to be a graphic designer for an ad agency, find an incredible ad that you liked, and just recreate it. Then make it your own. Something inspired by it, like so. And
first start from scratch,
Yeah.
duplicate it from scratch. Then after you know you can do that, then make it your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because by duplicating it, you understand what are the elements that made this so good. Why did this one do so well, but other ads didn't? And by creating it yourself, you start naturally understanding why. Like, oh, okay, because if I, put this object on the left side, the balance is all off. So put them back on the right. That's why they put it here. There's like this invisible line where, if you were to draw a vertical line and a horizontal line, you'll notice that, like, if you cut it in like 3 halves, vertically and horizontally, you'll notice that the points where they intersect are my focal points. Like, this is where my eyes go. That's why this shape is over here. That's why this object is here. It's drawing you there. Stuff like that. So that's the way I always did it. I would just find cool things and recreate them, and that's how I learned to use the programs. I didn't go to school for that. That's how I learned to use them. That's how I learned to do this stuff. And when my moments came throughout my career to sort of shine, I was able to do it because I'd already done it 100 times.
So okay, pause on that.
Yeah.
So you give yourself these type of projects. Is it project based? Is it time based? Because it requires. So, by the way, just so that you know, this is. For anyone listening, this is like really good career advice, by the way, in case you don't know this. Because, a lot of people, they wait until someone tell them to do something, then they do it, versus self-educating, self-learning with specific deadlines. Treat it yourself as if your own client, right? And then just give it a time box and then continue to hone it in that way. So give me some concrete things that you give to yourself. Is it a 90-day project? Is it a 30-day project? Is it a weekly project? Like, what is the scope that you give to yourself?
So yes, the proactive approach is definitely the better way to go. I limit it to times per day. So I say, okay, so today is going to be there's a 2-hour window, and here I have a list of my projects. I'm going to be working in that 2 hours. Now, if I have, like, let's say 3 or 4 projects, what I tend to do, I don't know if this will work for everyone else, is I will jump between projects. I'll do 25% of one project, jump to another one, and it requires a completely different kind of, part of the brain to work on this stuff. So it's really good practice. So I can
why do you do
practice. It's the same reason that doctors will recommend you, if you're right-handed, once in a while eat your cereal with your left hand, because it keeps the brain guessing and it forces it to sort of stay sharp.
I see. So this is your way of cross-training.
Right. Yes.
I see.
Absolutely.
Because some people may say, well, that's dilly-dallying, right? Using it in a not so positive way. Right. So, because I'm actually of the belief that I want to go deep versus jumping around a bit.
Okay.
So why did you pick the cross-training route versus the deep dive route?
So because I treat this like training. This is not a project for, like, let's say, work. It's for the purpose of improvement.
Right.
And by being able to jump between things, I unintentionally gave myself that ability to wear multiple hats in startups that I work. For example, I'm working on one project, last minute, there's a last minute request. Hey, we need to edit videos. And I'm like, I haven't edited a video in years, but all that training I've done, I'm able to kind of intuitively figure out how this program works, for example. And I think it's really important. If you treat it like training, it gives you that ability to understand, what needs to be done and kind of switch on a dime.
I see. So you put yourself in a situation of the startups that you work for, and because startups is like this.
Yes.
You have multiple projects on any given time, multiple internal clients at any given time, and therefore you train like this. Okay, good. So that explains it. Because as a scientist, my training was not that, right? I don't have multiple science projects.
You have one.
I have one.
Gotcha.
I got to go really deep. So therefore, my training and continue to be the way I work today is actually not to. I actually don't work very well switching.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I learned to be better, but my preferred way of doing things, especially as an introvert, is to go deep.
Gotcha.
Once I kind of knows how my internal thought process works and I can articulate it. But anyway, we're going back to what you're saying. So cool, appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
By the way, really great advice for anyone that's listening. So you give yourself hours to switch around these projects.
Right.
And how do you know when to complete and move on to the next thing? Or cut and then start a new one? Because I'm sure as a creative, you have projects all the time, right? You want to do new things.
Yeah,
right?
it's really good. You keep those creative juices flowing as a byproduct, actually. I think I tend to hit like a small wall when I'm working on any particular design, and that's usually an indicator to sort of jump to the next thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of times what happens for designers is we'll complete a project, but we won't send it out yet. This is like our version of complete. Then maybe in a few hours or the next day, we'll come back, we'll look at it with sort of this fresh set of eyes. Because if you've been working on something for 3 hours, you're just all into it, and you've kind of lost your objectivity in a way. And you'd have to wait a few hours to kind of get it back, look at it like fresh. But by sort of switching every time you hit this like creative wall, switch over, start doing the next thing, now that objectivity for the first project is back. You can jump back to it and be like, oh, whoa, this is not right. I was just about to waste 2 more hours and go in the wrong direction. You can see that again. That is when I tend to switch, is when there's that creative wall. When I'm not sure where to go next. Okay, let's let it sit. Let's move on to the next thing. Start working on that. Oh, that's a great idea. Jump back to the other guy.
That's so interesting. So in my mind, I love the way James Altucher, one of the bloggers, he wrote about writing 10 ideas down a day. Yeah. He said that it's easy to write 5 ideas. But when you get to the 6, you start to sweat a little. 7, sweat some more, right? 8, 9, 10, you really have to use a lot of energy to squeeze those 8, 9, 10 ideas out. But those 8, 9, 10 ideas tend to be some of the best. From his perspective, right? So I really like that, because ultimately for me, my experience in working in science projects or engineering projects or entrepreneur projects, those 8, 9, 10 ideas, the 10th ideas, chances are usually some of my best. Because I actually have gone through the process and got out some of the superficial earlier stuff. So your approach is fascinating. So when do you stop? So is it I'm using that analogy, the 10 ideas. Is it at 5? Is it at 6? Is it at 7? Is it at 8?
I guess it would be at the 6. It makes sense if it's at the 6. It's because they're not really ideas, but if we were to use the same analogy, I guess it would be at the 6 when you start to really start squeezing it out. For me, in my experience, that 6th isn't as good as the first 5. How I've seen it. The first 5 is the others. You're just trying to write something. Is how I understand it. The first 5 were genuine, ideas that have been floating around that they've been in your head for a long time, but you've just forced yourself to kind of push them out. But 6, 7, 8, the way I would understand it, are the ones where you're just coming up with anything that fits.
You're eking it out,
Yeah.
trying to make it seem
Yeah.
original.
Yeah.
Yeah, the imitators of originality.
Right.
Yeah. So this is actually interesting.
Yeah.
So because design is such a creative, it requires flow, right?
Yeah.
It requires the thing. So you can't really force flow per se.
No.
But with analytical, you do want to like really think about 5 different angles and all of the
Right.
angles.
I think that makes sense. In that
So
way.
you gotta like kind of, I don't want to say force it, but exert that energy, right? That's interesting. My experience has been that it's actually somewhere in the middle. I don't want it to be so easy. Right?
Yeah, no one does. Yeah.
Right, but I also don't want to make it so like I'm forcing an outcome to something, because the chances are when I'm forcing something, the outcome isn't going to be original or creative or innovative anyway. So there's that kind of like I'm mixing analogy all over the place. I get it, but it's kind of like holding onto a sand.
Yeah, it just comes right through.
Right. If you hold it too loosely, it comes right through. Hold it too tightly. Actually, no, that's not a good analogy. Holding a fish, right?
Yeah.
Hold it too tightly, it kind of flies,
Squeezes out.
Yeah. All right, coming back. Back from my analogies. But this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything other and tactically to hone your mastery in conquering your impulse to be complacent, to be lazy, to say, today is not the day.
Right.
Today I should watch Netflix versus working on my projects and be better at my craft. Because in the creative pursuit, you do want to give yourself space.
Right.
To be creative. You don't want to like, once again, holding on too tightly.
Yeah.
So rigid that you can't be creative.
Of course.
So where's the line for you?
Yeah. Again, that's the technique I've always used, and I do recommend. It doesn't have to be 2 hours, but if you do assign yourself a period of time every day to do something. Oh, you good? Yeah. To do something, whatever it is you're trying to master, put that in the schedule. Stick to it. Even if it's you don't make anything good in that time, you still put that time in, and that creates that discipline over there. Don't sway from it, because if at least for me, if I skip it once, then it's really easy to skip it again.
Slippery slope.
Right.
Yeah.
So that way, I just say.
Is it regular time, like 8 to 10 specifically, or you kind of just
no?
keep
It's
it loose?
it's a specific time. So it's for me, it's 9:30 to 11:30.
Okay.
Every day, because I don't know how late I'll be at work.
Yeah.
But I still want to put that time in.
I got you.
No matter what.
I got you.
I won't always find 2 hours worth of work. I'll admit. I use Sundays to sort of figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
Cool, fun projects.
So Sunday is your planned time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like meal prep, but for creative prep.
There you go. Yeah. So then Monday to Saturday is execution.
Correct.
I see.
Yeah,
All right.
and it's a lot of fun, and Sundays is exploration day, right? So I want to say, look, I want to learn, how to do 3D animations. What are some good projects? I'll find some cool projects, put that in the queue, and then work through it during the week. And that way you can just amass a lot of different skills and give yourself like 30 days of actual projects. Can make you pretty good at just about anything. And then you just keep going with it.
I like it.
Yeah.
And how do you manage this queue? You use Trello? What do you use as a way to help you manage all of the ideas, all of the tasks, all the possible projects?
Personally, I love using Evernote.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I have it on my phone. I have it on my laptop.
Yeah.
Anytime idea strikes or someone shows me something cool, it's going into Evernote.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just pull out my phone and I've got like pages and pages of it. I write a lot of like fan fiction for movies that I watch, and okay. A ton of it.
All right, so cross training.
Yeah. That's another one.
That's great.
That's absolutely another one. That's a really good tool, because sometimes I'm having a conversation with a friend. I'm like, that's a really good idea. Write that down. and that's a great way to keep it all.
So you're using your creative muscles quite a bit.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Writing, design, video editing, any kind of
animations, all
animation. Of it. What else? Any other modalities I use to create to train your creative muscles?
Yeah. Well, I started illustrating, like trying to write like a comic book illustration. This is a completely different skill I discovered.
Drawing?
Yeah, drawing.
Okay.
I'm not good at it.
Not yet?
No, not yet.
Right.
Not yet.
As long as you're putting in hours.
Right.
Yeah.
What I do love about it is it helps whenever you see a comic illustration, there is absolutely a formula to it. Head to body ratio, size ratio on the hero versus the villain. Their positioning, how you know when someone is fighting, when someone is being, is being scared or anything like this. This is all how can you show an entire spectrum of emotion in a still image.
Interesting.
Like this, and this is something that they do really well. This is something I'm learning as a byproduct of it, which is what makes learning new things so exciting, because you learn things you didn't know you were gonna figure out.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you are able to identify this curiosity that you have. Yeah. Right. And then also you're able to identify the process, the discipline that it takes to master something. I mean, like I said, this is not normal. It's not like natural. It's not ordinary.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Ordinary people don't think this way, and hence that explains the excellence of your work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. What about, because then one other thing I noticed too is your ability to articulate the visual work. Right? Obviously this is what you do, but some people are intuitive.
Yeah.
Some people get it, but they may not be able to articulate why this is better than that versus better than that. So how did you train yourself to communicate in a way that's effective?
Most of my experience was I had to explain it and articulate it, and that's really always I wish there was some secret to it. It was just, again, practice. Most people wouldn't understand what I was trying to do with it. And as I describe it, explain it, they would start to see it. And the next time I did something, how I know if they listened is because they saw it again and they said, oh, and they pointed out what I had explained earlier. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Just practice, I guess.
I see. So similar to being better at fights.
Right.
If you want to be better at explain
stuff
to people and explain things to people.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. So, what about relationships? Relationship management to other men in your life or other people at work, as an example. How do you train yourself to be better at expressing, your internal state? Well, first and foremost to yourself, and then secondarily to people around you, such that they know how to interact with you in an effective way.
Yeah. I wish I was better at this aspect of my life. That's for sure. But I say it works the same way with anything else. You have to really make the time for it, no matter what.
So tactically, though, how do I? So say I make the time for it. What do I do? Right. What do I do with that?
Show up. Let's say with girlfriends I've had in the past, and I always work out. I always work quite a bit. But sometimes, normally, if there was no girlfriend, I'd be working until 8, 9 o'clock. If there is a girlfriend, I'll make sure to leave and make it home for dinner, or a date or whatever it is. Make sure you get home. Just show up, even if it's for 30 minutes, even if it's for less. just that effort automatically kind of makes it important to you. And if you feel like it's important to you, you will just naturally make it work.
I hear that a lot, right? I hear that if it's important for you,
Yeah.
you would make the time or the effort.
Well, you have to make it. It's not you can. For me, it's you have to sort of trick the brain into making it feel important, right?
I see.
You know, it's like brushing your teeth. If there have been times where I am just absolutely dead tired, I get into bed, I'm ready to sleep, and then about 10 minutes into it, I realize I haven't brushed my teeth yet. As tired as I am, it's so important. I have to physically go and do it because
it's a discipline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
I see.
Once you start training your body to do it, you'll notice that you can fit it all into a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can do that. You can take care of that and that. I don't think you want to tell her that she's part of a schedule, but it's essentially probably how you'd have to make it work.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is in the beginning, put it in a schedule.
Right.
Then maybe after 1,000th time. Or
yeah,
whatever,
it's a
then
natural
habit.
And if you're lucky, she starts adapting to it as well. He or she, sorry, for whoever is listening.
Sure.
They start to kind of understand your schedule. You understand theirs. You become a team.
Yeah.
Which is that's the dream, right?
Right. Well, what about, let's say, professional relationships then? How do you manage professional relationships? How do you manage them in such a way that's effective for you?
Right. In environment like this company, for example, everyone's eager to kind of help out, and you are as well. So keeping do you mean I'm sorry, maybe I don't understand that question. Yeah.
I asked a very ambiguous question. Let me ask it in a different way. For someone that's listening to this, right, they want to be the better version of themselves, the better man in modern times today, and you give some really solid advice around growing one's career.
Yeah.
Right. And a huge part of growing one's career is nurturing your professional relationships.
Okay.
So I'm asking you for some tactical things that you do to nurture healthy, synergistic relationships at work.
Okay. What I love to do, and what I totally appreciate when it happens for me as well, is like they say, everyone says, "Oh, be an active listener. Be an active listener." But what do you do when you are an active listener? When you have you talk to someone, you find out what they like, what they've done. Maybe they tell you like an anecdote or a story that happened in their past. The next time you have a conversation, you bring it in to that conversation. This kind of makes this person feel a lot more comfortable with you. This is something I've always noticed my father would do with people. My father was like a black belt in making friends and creating relationships, because he would always incorporate things that you've shared, personal things, into their conversations. He'd bring, "Oh, don't you like this too?" Or if that person's within earshot of you having a conversation with someone else about something that person is an expert in, you bring that guy in or her in. That's something I've noticed that helps you really make good relationships. People remember you like this. They feel acknowledged around you, and you've got friends for life. This is one of our coworkers here, Krista. This is something she always did with me. I always noticed when I first started working with her, and we'd have conversations, and she'd always bring up things that we talked about into it. I'm like, wow, she's just like, she really cares. She really found me interesting, stuff like this, and therefore I always wanted to be like around her. Or anytime she found a new new company that she was working at. I'm like, oh, if she's there, I want to be there. If she, if she says it's good, then it has to be good.
Yeah.
Right. Like for example, here, she reached out to me. She said, hey, what are you doing? Are you looking for a change? And the first thing that came to my mind was I would love the opportunity to work with her again. So that's something that, and I'm not the only one. There's like 5 other people that she brought in, and they all feel the same way about it.
Right.
So, yeah, she has this incredible ability to do that, and I try to do that as much as I can myself. I'm not at her level yet, but I'm trying.
Well, she was a black belt level, and then perhaps you're the blue belt level, right?
Then how do we get there?
Right.
We practice.
You practice. We continue to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a famous phrase people say, people are not going to remember, may or may not remember what you say or what you do, but they'll always remember how you make them feel.
Right.
And Krista is amazing at making people feel acknowledged, recognized. And really, as human beings, ultimately what we want is to be seen, to be heard, to see and be seen, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, so what a beautiful reminder. Cool, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with people who are listening that was tactical tools to help them be the best men that they can be in modern times?
This is never more now than any point in history can we genuinely do what we want to do and be who we want to be. You don't have to come from a wealthy family. You don't have to have even gone to a fancy school. All that knowledge, all that education, all that stuff is out there for you. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to fail. You learn a lot more from it. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I do that all the time. And, the world never stopped.
It's okay. You won't end.
Yeah, exactly. And I wish I remember who said this, but these are some words that have always kind of resonated with me. I wish I remember who said this, but he said, "Be active in your own rescue."
What does that mean?
So the example he gave is if you're in the middle of the ocean and you're like treading water, don't sit around waiting for someone to throw you a lifeboat. Start swimming. Kind of thing. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, you're in the middle of an ocean, don't expect anyone to come and magically help you out. It may happen. It absolutely may happen, but you have to start, with you. Figure out what you want to do, or even maybe you don't know what you want to do. Just try things, and you try enough things, you find something that you like, and hopefully you're good at. That combination is ideal. Then just keep at it, keep practicing. You're gonna fail a lot. That's okay, but be active in your own rescue. And and I remember when I in any time in my life where I just feel like I can't do this, and I want to maybe pawn it off to someone else or tell them I can't do it. That's or maybe wait for someone to just magically relieve me of this burden. I remember, hey, be active in your own rescue.
So that's a mantra you use a lot.
Yeah.
I see. On that failure thing, though, I mean, that's a life's journey, right, ultimately.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to say not to be afraid to fail, or, failure is a learning experience, right, all that. So tactically, though, how do you continue to, that's what I'm looking for, reinterpret it such that it's a learning experience always, not a matter of failure or success?
That song, "Don't Worry, Be Happy," right? There's a line in there. If if you're in trouble, if you cry, you make it double. Kind of thing. The general sentiment behind it is that if you just complain about it or whine about it or just sulk about it, the failure, and you focus on the failure itself, you've made it worse than it actually is. You've given it more power and energy. Yeah, it's coming alive. If it's a failure that you can't do anything about, then you really have no reason to worry about it.
Yeah,
because
it's so easy to say. That's the thing,
you know,
right?
It might be it might just be
easy to say.
It might just be a character thing. Because I have a brother and a first cousin who are two different people. My first cousin and my brother, they're both basically like brothers. We all grew up together. Anyway. My brother, younger brother, does let, when he fails, that stuff consumes him. He's angry, and he kind of uses that anger to get his way out.
I see.
You know,
he's an energizer,
right?
I see.
Right, and he uses it against it. Like if you want to kind of do that, but he wastes a lot of time, you know, being upset about it. You know, almost like it's like revving him up. You know? My cousin, who actually is closer to my kind of character, is whenever something goes wrong, something's not working, or or we fail at something, if there's nothing you can do about it, we'll sort of just shelve it. There won't be any type of superficial emotion that gets because it's exhausting.
Right, he won't add new emotions into it. No. Whatever emotion he had, okay, and then he's
and he's not going to bring anyone else into it either. Like feel bad for me kind of thing. Right. And then because you have to actively figure out how to fix this problem. If you can't fix this problem, don't let it consume you like this. If you can recognize, so when you do, first thing is, this is assuming you can recognize what went wrong. That's the first thing you have to do. Why did it not work? And once you kind of like clear your head, all right, why did this not work? Let's pick this apart. And you're going to learn more by picking it apart than you were if you just got it right the first time, like on the first try.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. It's the only way we learn. We talked about it many times.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we just keeps coming back, because it's it's meaningful. For example, in boxing, for example, you can. No one really ever. You don't react to a punch coming to your face. Because everyone's reaction time is essentially the same. It's there's a stimulus. Your eyes see it, goes to your brain tries to figure out what's going on, and then it sends a signal to the appropriate part of the brain. In this case, head, move out of the way. Reflexes are different. So reaction and reflex, two different things. Reflex is you've conditioned your body to act a certain way to a stimuli instantly. So if you've been punched enough times in the face from, like a jab, for example, you reflexively get out the way. You reflexively recognize certain positioning and body movement and weight changes and arm drops and little micro movements in the body, because you've failed so many times that you understand how to sort of succeed.
Wait, hold on. Yeah. So pause.
Each time you get hit is a failure, essentially.
Right. So in order to do that, I need to get hit so many times.
Pretty much.
Holy shit.
Pretty much. That's why sparring's so great. Sparring lets you, like in a real, you don't want to start learning in a real fight. You want to learn it in sparring, because in sparring, if you have a good partner at least, who won't go hard with you, so you're able to get hit multiple times, and there's no physical damage usually. But in a real fight, you don't want to get hit at all. Right. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
That's why you train.
I mean, there's so much. If you really look deep in what you just said, there's so much wisdom in what you just said, right? The name of the game is to master new skills. Yeah. The ability to solve problems. Yeah. And you want to stay in the game. Don't die. And don't get knocked out. Yeah. So then therefore you do the hard practice. You spar. You will do whatever. And I like what you said about the difference between your brother and your cousin, because in my mind, this is the way I kind of think about it, right? If you think about a spectrum of feminine and masculine, because in my mind, Chinese philosophy, yin and yang, it's a spectrum. And you can also look at the y-axis, immature, mature, or unhealthy, healthy. Right? In my mind, I want to operate from neutral. I don't want to operate from perpetually a masculine space or feminine space or unhealthy space or immature space or whatever it may be. And then from neutral, then I have options to choose. Is this situation does this situation call for anger?
Right.
If I can channel anger as a way to solve this problem, I want to channel anger. If that's the most effective way to channel, great. But I don't want to stay there either. Go back to neutral, right? If letting things go is the best way to solve this problem right now, guess where I'm gonna go? I'm gonna go letting this go right now, right? So that's my mental model in doing all of this.
And how do you decide which way you want to go?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So that's the mental model. I'm not saying I'm a black belt in that
level
level yet, right?
Yeah.
There's a quote I keep quoting in this podcast is between stimulus and responses is space. And that space lies our freedom and our growth, right? So I want to have a lot of different options that in the micro moment that I can pick or react to. That my body and my mind, my heart, my emotions is well trained to be able to hopefully, intuitively pick the best option that I know of in that moment. So that's a short answer. A long answer to that question, how do I know? I would say do a lot of the daily disciplines that I do. Whether it be psychedelic experience or whether it be meditation or whether it be, mistakes that I made in the past that I experienced a lot of pain. Hey, don't do that. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
Do that thing because staying being angry forever may be useful, but ultimately your adrenaline, your adrenal gets fatigued and all that. Long-term effects. Right?
So you're sort of programming that little, I guess it's like a dot on the spectrum that moves.
Yeah. So in my mind,
teaching it to
and I'm teaching a range.
Yeah.
Versus how I was raised, a man has no emotions. So good. So now half of my spectrum I don't get to use, or I don't use very effectively because I have no experience. Right? So I can only spade the other half of the spectrum. As an example. Right. So hence why cross training, going back, to a lot of the same analogies. And in my mind, the true master, in my mind, a man that I look up to, that I respect, has range. Has options. He's not always in default a particular masculine way or feminine way or whatever way that he's at. He is situational.
Okay.
Right?
That works.
Yeah. So that's kind of my mental model. So I really love the example that you gave about your brother and your cousin.
Yeah.
And that that's their default state.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe that works well for them consistently. Even if your brother doesn't love it.
Yeah. It's just logically how it works for him. Yeah.
But he likes it. That's
maybe.
That's why he keeps going back to it.
Maybe.
Right.
He likes the results, I think, is...
right, that's what I mean. Right? He likes it.
Yeah.
But he may not enjoy
the moment. Okay, I understand.
But maybe he doesn't know there are other options.
Yeah, maybe not. We weren't, similarly, we were raised just, man, no emotion.
Right.
It's like, it's a very, conventional kind of household like that. And the only emotion that I guess you can have is rage.
Right.
Right, if you're a man.
So you got 0 or 1.
Yeah, 0 or anger, Right. It's, we don't, no one in my family holds anything in, which is good.
Yeah.
But they also, don't hold anything in, which is not always good. There's like this Armenian or Russian anecdote kind of thing. It's people will hold it in, When you hold in too many things, that's how you get like cancer. If
Right.
you let too many things out, that's how you get a heart attack. So find your
Oh,
kind
that's
of
interesting.
balance.
I heard the
Yeah.
first part. I didn't hear the second
Yeah,
part.
it's because you're stressed out all the time.
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Because in my heart attack is also disease too.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't always be angry. You can't always. Well, I mean, they're both like stages of sort of the stress.
I see. Okay.
But one is just always yelling and screaming. The other is just
I
always
see.
holding it in.
I see, I
The
see.
translation comes
I
out a
see.
little.
So
different.
one is they suppress. One is they don't suppress.
They
They
explode.
let everything they
Yeah.
explode.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, thanks so much for sharing
No,
everything.
thank
Your
you.
culture. So I want to acknowledge you.
Yes.
I want to acknowledge you for sharing so generously about yourself. I want to acknowledge you for sharing like some tactical tools that some of these people who are listening could take into their careers to be more masterful in their craft, to cultivate the relationship that they can use that would advance them to be the kind of person, the kind of professional that they want to be. I want to acknowledge you to also share some of the kind of behind the scenes, family life.
Yeah.
Because that from these analogies that people can really learn how to actually pick better tools. They have different options. So that's really the goal of all of these podcast interviews that I do.
Yeah,
So,
and I want to acknowledge you for that. This is a wonderful idea, and you do have this incredible ability to just bring that stuff out of people. Because I think you might be the only person I ever talked to about stuff like that, which is really interesting. So I appreciate you for that, and I want to acknowledge that is a talent in its own. So well done.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
See you next time.